I know that you wanted to discuss more about what we discussed last night regarding George, Helaena, and how he's been very inconsistent. So do you want to get into that now?
Oh gosh, this is my double down. My double down. Oh my god. So Trey, you listened to this our thing last
Yes.
night,
Yeah,
and
yeah, about like how Fire and Blood is structured with the death of Maelor and then the suicide of Helaena, right? There's a big gap.
so this is where people, man, the assholes really came out of the woodwork on this, and part of it is my fault. I put a clickbaity title and thumbnail on that said scandal. Everyone was looking for me to be bashing Ryan Condal. So when I actually was like, look, I'll bash Ryan Condal all day on the things he actually did wrong, but like this post is not that strong. George chose some weak arguments to bash Ryan Condal when he could have just been like, you fucking cut nettles, you fucker. Like, it would have been that easy.
The more interesting story.
Right, just be like, you cut nettles, you monster. Instead, he's like, how dare you screw up the Helaena story, which I have to go in because people are like, I made some comment that George doesn't know his own work. And yeah, George kind of fucks up here, but I fuck up too. But look, it's George's fucking work. You should fucking know
You
this.
upset all
but,
those Helaena Fire and Blood fans. Like, they're not fans of the show.
Well, here's the thing. Again, this is the thing about Helaena. Helaena is barely a fucking character. She's in one fucking scene. She's in Blood and Cheese, and she has no other goddamn role in in Fire and Blood. I think some people see the show and have fallen in love with show Helaena and have like created like their own girlfriend in their head or something. And like, so when I mention like Helaena, they're like, oh, how dare you insult her? It's like, she's not a fucking character, okay?
Do you mind if I butt in for 1 second here? Because I have to say that this is something that you also brought up many streams back. I fucking hate this person so much. Please ban this person, because I hate the disinformation. It's like the Nazi guy I talked about earlier. This person here, Carmine, you're just plain wrong. Plain wrong in this case. Helaena is neurodivergent, sure, but it doesn't mean she can't feel deep depression about her kid's death. People with autism... Here we go. I never said people with autism or who are neurodivergent could not do that.
Cancel.
Can we put
cancel.
this... dude, can we put this to bed? Like, did Ryan Condal or anyone come out and say that Helaena has autism or is neuro... Did he?
No one's ever said that. No. There's no evidence of her having autism.
Between episodes. It's inconsistent between episodes, at the very least.
The annoying part about this person's like comment is like, Helaena did not have to be a different character in the sense, blah, blah, blah. The only problem is how she was not shown to be seemingly affected by it at all in later parts of the season. That's literally what I said in the fucking video. You're agreeing with me, but
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you said because you're being insensitive to autistic people and people with depression. And and because I've struggled with depression, you are now a bad person. And you're the one driving me to go further into depression.
It's so. I'm sorry, Preston. I do apologize for interrupting.
I know, but it's people are doing it like all through my comment section that somehow like I'm being insensitive to people with depression or something by even discussing like this, even though George is making the same sort of comments. But anyway, let me start at the beginning with this, okay? Helaena, so George R. R. Martin wrote The Princess and the Queen, which is the original story of what eventually becomes Fire and Blood. And he does that in the year 20. I'm trying to think when Dangerous Women come out in. It comes out in. Oh yes, anthology comes out in 2013. Okay, so George R. R. Martin is trying to distract himself from writing The Winds of Winter. He has an anthology with all of his friends writing different stories. He knows he has to throw in a story in order to like make the thing sell. He craps out Princess and the Queen, and the book sells. They then decide to follow it up. So he has the next year he writes the Rogue Prince for Rogues, and then the next year he writes Sons of the Dragon for the Book of Swords. And then later, when he's still trying, like he's still failing to get Winds of Winter together, his editor kind of says to him, "Hey, what can you produce?" And he's like, "Well, I can produce this Fire and Blood book." So he like writes some chapters on Jaehaerys and slaps it together, and we have Fire and Blood. Okay, so Fire and Blood was put together in this piecemeal, sloppy fashion. So it's filled with a lot of contradictions. And so when George is taught, and it's actually, he then writes it with multiple perspectives. And so when you read the book, it's really difficult to determine what's actually going on. Now, I bring this up because George writes in his blog post, "The butterflies are not done with us yet. In the book, when word of Prince Maelor's death and the grisly manner of his passing reaches the Red Keep, that proves to be the thing that drives Helaena to suicide. She could barely stand to look at Maelor, knowing that she chose him to die in Sophie's choice scene, and now he is dead in truth, her words having come true. The grief and guilt are too much for her." Okay. That doesn't fucking happen in Fire and Blood. Okay, that is something new that George has put there, and I commented yesterday that George doesn't know his own fucking work. And everybody's like, "How fucking dare you? It did say this and this and this." And now I've got to fucking go through the goddamn history of Helaena and precisely tell people what happened so that we can put this fucking issue to rest. That no, George doesn't know his fucking work. I made some mistakes too, because it's really hard to fucking know the fucking work when it keeps getting retconned and it's multiple perspectives and it contradicts itself. But let's go through exactly what happened, okay? So I hope you're all ready for a very boring history lesson on George R. R. Martin and of fucking Helaena, this non-character in Fire and Blood that is in one fucking scene and exists to birth babies and commit suicide. That is all she exists to be. She is
altogether of maybe 2 paragraphs of information.
2 paragraphs in total. Yeah, she is a horrible character. So. And so, when people are like, "Oh, you ruined the Helaena story." Oh my God, there was nothing to ruin. There was no fucking story. So in 2013's Princess and the Queen,
all right.
Okay, Helaena commits suicide. And it's suspected that it's a murder.
Right.
That's all that's in that story. Maelor does not die in Princess and the Queen. And there's no other reason for why, there's no reason given for why Helaena committed suicide or anything. She just commits suicide spontaneously, and it's suspected that it's a murder. And Maelor does not die in Princess and the Queen. So when George goes on to then criticize Ryan Condal for not having a reason for Helaena to commit suicide, it's kind of weird because George, you didn't fucking have that in the original Princess and the Queen. But okay.
So let's move on.
So that's
there's not even the Maiden's Day thing?
No.
Weird. So she just does it for no reason.
We last see Maelor, he's taken off by Rickard Thorne. And he's never heard from again. Now, the next thing that happens is in the World of Ice and Fire, with the World book, which comes out in 2016.
Everybody's favorite.
Yes. Again, Helaena commits suicide with no explanation. Again, the thing he criticizes Ryan Condal about. And again, it's suspected that it's a murder, and thus the cause for the riot. That all happens. It does mention that Rickard Thorne is killed and Maegor torn apart at Bitterbridge. That is mentioned in the World of Ice and Fire. However, there is no connection between them. There's no connection between Helaena thinking about that or that being the thing that does
the
it.
Catalyst or anything.
Now, I understand
And also
Yeah, the
it's
catalyst.
intentionally
And I understand that.
and kept ambiguous, right? Because it's also suspected of murder as well. It's kept equally
Yeah.
ambiguous if it was suicide or murder.
Right. That's the ambiguity, is the suicide or murder. So George has retconned the story now a little bit. He's added in like what actually happened to Maelor, but for the most part, the Helaena stuff has remained the same up until 2016. Now, in Fire and Blood, things get retconned quite a bit. So now, Maelor gets torn apart, and news reaches the Red Keep right after. The exact quote is, and if you're reading the book, it makes it seem like now this is public knowledge that the world knows that Maelor has died. Because, let's see here. Let's see here. We now say that Mushroom, who loved the queen well, tells us that Rhaenyra wept when Maelor's small head was placed before her as she sat the Iron Throne, because Lady Caswell sends back to King's Landing Maelor's head. Okay. And she says, Septon Eustace, who loved her little, says rather that she smiled and commanded that the head be burned, for he was the blood of the dragon. Though no announcement of the boy's death was made, word of his demise nonetheless spread throughout the city, and soon another tale was told as well, one that claimed that Rhaenyra had the prince's head delivered to his mother, Queen Helaena, in a chamber pot. Though the story had no truth in it, soon it was on every pair of lips in King's Landing. Mushroom put this down as just the clubfoot's work. A man who gathers whispers can spread them just as well. Mm-hmm. So, when reading Fire and Blood, now it seems like when Maelor dies, the world knows, and we even hear about Helaena hearing about the news.
Right.
Now, and this is 6 months before her suicide. So, all right. So that's an important thing, is that this is 6 months before her suicide, more or less, maybe a month here or there. However, later in Fire and Blood, we have then her actual suicide, and the let's see here. Okay. So now this is the day of the riots. Helaena dies, and it says that very day, not long after sunset, another horror visited the queen's court. Helaena Targaryen, sister, wife, and queen to Aegon II, and mother of his children, threw herself from her window in Maegor's holdfast to die, impaled upon the iron spikes that line the dry moat below. She was but 21. After a year and a half of captivity, why should Aegon's queen choose this night to end her life? So again, it's been about 6 months here. Mushroom asserts that Helaena was with child after her days and nights of being sold for a common whore, but this explanation is only credible as a tale of the brothel queens, which is to say not credible at all. So now we have ambiguous story here. Like, why is Helaena committing suicide? Well, maybe she was pregnant because for some reason. The brothel queens incident. Grand Maester Munkin believes the horror of seeing Sir Thorin and Sir Dennis die drove her to the act, but if the young queen knew the two men, it could only be as jailers, and there's no evidence that she was a witness to their hanging. Okay? So, two, seeing people die, like, drove her to it. Seeing people hanged. Septon Eustace suggests that Lady Mysaria, the White Worm, chose this night to tell Helaena of the death of her son Maelor and the grisly manner of his passing, though what motive she would have had for doing so beyond simple malice is hard to fathom. And then also comes in the rumor of the murder. So, as a reader of Fire and Blood, you are presented 4 different options, or possibly 5, on why Helaena dies. Is she pregnant? Was it the horror of seeing people die or hearing about, Sir Thorin and Sir Dennis? Again, like, if they're her jailers, maybe maybe one of them's her lover. You have no idea. Or do you believe the story of Lady Massaria revealing all of a sudden that her son is dead and the Grisly Manor is passing, meaning for some reason they've kept the secret of Maelor's death a secret for 6 fucking months. Like, I don't know why they would keep it a secret or how they would keep it a secret.
Right, despite the fact that it seems like the whole city knows already. The whole kingdom knows.
And and it's like maybe Helaena is being kept in a prison, but she's next to a window. And they're like, well, maybe they don't tell her because she's on suicide watch and they don't want to depress her, but they've given her a room with a window. And, all these different things, like, and then why would Massaria, like, what motive does Massaria, who again is a character we hardly fucking know, like, why would Massaria want to be so mean to Helaena? Like,
and
why?
We don't know. It doesn't, the text is like, I don't know. We have no clue.
Right. Or is it a murder?
Or did somebody want Helaena out of the way? Like, each one of those are given equal weight, more or less.
Right. And or maybe some other option. So when George says here that when word of Prince Maelor's death in the Grisly Manor reaches the Red Keep, that proves the thing that drives Helaena to suicide. So George is just wrong. It was not when word reached the Red Keep. Now you might say, oh, but that's nitpicking. What really they meant was Septon Eustace's version, that George meant to say when the news was told to Helaena. They'd miraculously, for some reason decided to keep it a secret for 6 months, and they miraculously achieved that goal of keeping it a secret for 6 months. And then Massaria, for some reason, unknown reason, tells her, like, that's the thing that drives her to suicide. Like, we're all supposed to, like, accept that as the real story, and then he's somehow getting angry. Well, this is what the thing is. He's getting angry at Ryan Condal for not coming to the same conclusion.
Right.
That's
when I see that, I'm like, George, you intentionally wrote it to be ambiguous and it to be like the reader's choice, which option, if any, to believe. Like, and you're angry that somebody did that. Like, that's literally how you wrote.
Or left it a blank because he hadn't decided yet. Because there was all of these options, and it's like, I haven't figured it out. Maybe I'll
makes the best
pass
story,
on it.
What makes the best story? What gives the actors most to do with? I don't know.
Right.
It's weird.
So a lot of times when going through Fire and Blood, I would actually check previous versions of The Princess and the Queen and the Rogue Prince to see what originally George wrote. So, for instance, in the original. In Fire and Blood, there's different versions of what happens to Beesbury. Like, maybe Beesbury was brought to the Black Cells, or maybe he was thrown out the window maybe his throat was slit by Kristen Cole. Well, in Princess and the Queen, his throat is just simply slit by Kristen Cole, and that's it. And it kind of says something. Oh, well, that's George's original idea. That's probably the one that's true. So in the original Princess and the Queen, though, like, Maelor is not the influence for Helena's suicide. So it's really hard to, like, and there is no original motive. George didn't have that written down. And then it's like the criticism of Ryan Condal for the same thing. And so what, I don't know, like people got really angry at me for being like, oh, George doesn't know his own work here. And it's like, yeah, kinda. He fucks up. He fucks up. Yeah, he fucks up and then, like, attributes something as being very certain that's certainly not certain.
Right. It reminds me of, like, the Jace and Luke and Joffrey being bastards. Like, people are so dead set on that, like, in the source material, and it's like, no, it's intentionally kept ambiguous if they actually are or not. Like, he left that ambiguous, right. And that's the whole point. That's the whole point, is that you as the reader don't know because of the murkiness of history and contradicting of sources and political bias and stuff. Like, I felt like that was the whole point of the text. And for people to be like, no, like you're
Yeah.
missing the point. You're missing. They're actually supposed to be bastards 100%. It's non-ambiguous. It's like, no, that's not it. That's not the text.
But it's like being insecure. It's like I question myself. I'm like, why would George write this big ambiguous text and then later be like, no, there's a proper story. Like what?
How are we supposed to figure that out as the reader when you intentionally made it ambiguous?
Like there's no way to go through this because each of these stories doesn't seem likely. Like when I read the Septon Eustace tale, Septon Eustace tells that Lady Massaria, the White Worm, chose that night to tell Helaena the death of her son Maelor in the grisly manner of his passive, though what motive she would have for doing so beyond simple malice is hard to fathom. So the first thing I would say is, okay, one, how would Septon Eustace have that information?
Right.
And I'd first be like, he wouldn't. Like, did he really see was he there and saw Lady Massaria like walk into her room? And how did he know what they talked about? So like the first thing I'd be like, Septon Eustace doesn't seem like a credible source.
Well, is Septon Eustace, is he pro black or pro green? Because I thought he was pro green.
He's pro green.
Yeah.
So for the most, he's pro. Yeah, he's rather pro green.
So he could be unreliable too. He could be
right. So one, he wouldn't be there, and he's unreliable. And then Lady Massaria, like, what's her motive for just like driving a woman to suicide? Like Dragon Demands was like, I believe that Laurie Strong either went in there and did it or murdered her because that would cause chaos, and Laurie Strong is an agent of chaos. And I'm like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like that's a good theory, you know? Like, but Lady Massaria going in there and telling her
and pro Rhaenyra. And then by doing that, she causes chaos in the city, which does not help Rhaenyra. Unless she's secretly like anti-Rhaenyra the whole time, which I don't know if there's much evidence for that.
So it's like you're looking at this tale, and then it's like already earlier in the story, we found out that the news of Maelor's was everywhere.
Right.
So like it being a secret for Helaena is just not even very likely to begin with. So like when I look at this tale, I'm just like, well, this doesn't seem like a very likely tale. And then I look at the other ones and I'm like, oh, Grand Maester Monk, like we just heard this explanation that perhaps we were primed with this, maybe Helaena was pregnant. And then we hear that Grand Maester Monken believes that the horror of seeing Sir Thorin or Sir Dennis die drove her to the act. But if the young queen knew these men, it was only as her jailers. Okay, one of these guys was her jailer. Maybe she was in a relationship with one. She was pregnant, and then he got hanged, and she felt distraught that her lover was killed. Like that comes to mind, you know? But it's kind of a random little tale. And then, you know, was the brothel queens? That doesn't seem very likely either. It seems a little cruel, you know, or was it just a murder? Which also seems kind of likely. So it's like, I can't decide, but the Septon Eustace tale doesn't seem that likely. So George sitting there saying, oh no, it was the Septon Eustace tale. Like, oh,
it's like, dang, that kind of defeats the point of Fire and Blood. Because that's the thing, is he spent so much time, that's so many words and so many sentences to give an ambiguous answer to how Helaena died, and then for George to be like, no, right. it's the one, it's that one. It's like, oh,
like people could argue. I mean, look how much people argue about the fucking like bastard issue with Jace, Luke, and Joffrey. People are still arguing. Like, if someone were to argue about this, it would just go on and on and on.
Right.
There's like,
it's like
no way to figure it out.
What's the stupid who Serwyn of the Mirrored Shield thing? Like that stupid debate.
Yeah, we did.
Where none of the options actually work. Like none of the all the options have problems. All of them kind of contradict each other. And I think because we talked about it, none of the options really work 100%. Like all of them have problems. Like how did he get into the Red Keep and fight Cyrax if it was Cyrax, that kind of thing.
Right. So like all these people telling me that I have my head up my butt, and it's like, but George has not only the facts wrong, He has his own themes wrong. I don't understand how a guy,
because that's the whole point, is that it's ambiguous. That you
how can he miss his own themes? Like, I don't get it. I don't know. I mean,
to be fair, homie, your main criticism here is that people are saying you think you know the books better than the guy who wrote them, and that's one of the.
It kind of seems like it, though. It kind of seems like. I know that sounds crazy, but it kind of seems like George missed the point of his own.
Right, but Trey, the thing here is that no one is ever going to like a know-it-all person, and people are going to think he's being pretentious about it. And I don't really think you're able to politely say the author is inconsistent without sounding that way.
It's wrong.
So it's a lose-lose battle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
I mean, at the end of the day, I just like to say that it's a slapped together text that's been changed and retconned a few times and written in a purposely ambiguous style.
Right.
So it's to claim anything is like the real truth is just so weird. And then to criticize Ryan Condal for not having it all figured out is also kind of weird. So again, so many reasons to criticize Ryan Condal. Why criticize him on this?
I think it was what that woman said. I forgot her name again. I think it's what that woman said in regards to what George could have said. He could have said way more damning things according to her, but he chose this one minor thing. And I hate that he chose this one minor thing. I really wish he went just full scorched earth.
Right. Nettle. Just talk about nettles or talk about the prophecy thing and how it kind of ruins Damon's character or whatever. Do something. I don't know. Something more substantial than Maegor. Or Maelor, sorry.
Maelor.
See, he's so memorable. I got his name wrong.
I know. A character they cut because they clearly just did one of a scene where people tear apart babies.
And George was like, my scene with that washerwoman. What? There's like a big heavyset woman, right? A washerwoman that tears him apart. He's like, that's such a good scene. I'm so upset you guys got that scene. That would have been gold on camera. Oh. 2 pound Pinstone? What is her name?
He had to realize that what they were going to do, they were going to come down on him immediately for that. I'm sure he probably has some non-disparagement clause in his contract. And, he had to have known that.
So he's in trouble. Is he in trouble, or is he just kind of like?
He's definitely in a little trouble.
How much we don't really know, but
oh, George. We'll never see George at these events anymore. He's not going to get invited to Duncan egg set again. He's cut out.